Hi, and welcome to Willow Roundtable Discussions. Willow is an events-driven community where industry experts and entrepreneurs can come together in social settings and share the latest intelligence in cutting-edge technology and investment opportunities. Our group discussion starts now. I want to thank everyone for coming. I know you're not coming because of me, you're coming because of these very famous people that we were lucky enough to have in our office today. So like I said, this is a Willow event, so we do weekly events on different topics that I find interesting. We gather experts together for these sort of roundtable discussions, and so today our event is on DeFi. So let's get started, and let's get started with our speakers giving each of them an introduction. Let's maybe start with Andrew.
I'm Andrew. I run Mechanism Capital. We're a crypto fund that does business in the primary market for pretty much anything crypto related. So we do everything from debt financing for mining operations to investing in equity of exchanges to also investing in primary market token deals, and we also trade quite a bit in the secondary markets across spot and derivatives.
I'm Tom Schmidt. I'm a partner at Dragonfly Capital. Dragonfly Capital, it's a $300 million crypto venture fund. Sort of our calling card is that we're sort of split between Asia and the US. So we have a team in China, Singapore, me obviously in Taiwan, and then we have a team in San Francisco. I focus specifically on DeFi, but our investments sort of run the gamut for early stage investment. So we do CeFi, we do mining, we do a lot of token deals, things like that.
Hi, my name is Ken. I mostly did some advisory ICO stuff back in 2017, and in recent years, got involved with DeFi, as well as some NFT stuff, mostly just running my own book right now. Have Andrew to thank for the initial intro into the space. And yeah, mostly just discretionary trades, primary deals, stuff like that.
Hi, I'm Yenwen. So I work on Perpetual Protocol, which is a decentralized perpetual swap protocol. We're a team in Taiwan, and I think that's it.
All right, well, hey, everybody. I'm Ryan. I lead BD and strategy for TrustToken. I think a lot of people know us for the TUSD stablecoin, but we've also recently launched TrueFi, on-chain unsecured lending protocol. And so even though I'm not a trader myself, I get to interact with a lot of traders through my work. So hopefully have something interesting to say.
Awesome. So I think everyone knows about the news about Coinbase going to IPO tomorrow with initial USD 100 million valuation, and their CEO, Brian Armstrong, said that in the firm's earning call last week that providing access to DeFi will be their priority going forward. So for a central exchange to put the spotlight on DeFi as the future, we would like to explore why the future is DeFi, and we've brought the biggest investors and projects here in Taiwan to start so. And I also think we've kind of let the cat out of the hat a bit with no one really knew that Andrew Kang and Tom were here in Taiwan. So I think that's kind of what caused a lot of the excitement. And a lot of people ask me hey, Andrew, are you even Taiwanese? What are you doing here?
Yeah, I'm not Taiwanese. I came here because of a conference around a year and a half ago. It was the Asia Blockchain Summit hosted by Andrew Fei, who was a friend of mine. And so I come out, and I was like, okay. And I came out, and I love Taiwan. I kind of just stuck around.
Awesome. So I want to start a question with everyone here. What do you see are the biggest themes in the market today after DeFi summer, and then Layer 1's having an active fall, and now with NFTs? What are your thoughts right now? Maybe Tom could start.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's obviously something that we think about when we're looking at investments, because so much of the investment space is driven on narratives. For me, actually, I forgot to mention, before I joined Dragonfly, I was head of product at 0x for 2 years, which is one of the largest decentralized exchanges. And so for me, DeFi has always sort of been the story around crypto. It's been pretty obvious from day one that you can't just have money. You need other types of financial services and financial assets that sort of accompany the money. And so, when I joined Dragonfly, specifically focused on DeFi. And so for me, when I look forward, I still think DeFi is a large part of the story. It's just a matter of what sort of story you can tell within DeFi. So for us, when we're looking at new investments, things that I get most excited about are teams working on solving new problems or do something completely new. So, we probably don't need, 10 more compound clones or, 10 more Uniswap forks. We probably need people doing something, really innovative, something really different. And so when I look at sort of at the space more broadly, it's things like, derivatives, things like structured products, things like unsecured lending. And they can make me really excited because they have an opportunity to sort of grow the pie for everybody as opposed to just making the current pie more efficient. So I think when I look forward for 2021, a large part of where we're thinking about putting our capital work is in DeFi. I think another sort of growing theme that a lot of people are discussing now is MEV. So for those who don't know, MEV is miner extractable value, which is sort of this concept that within Ethereum, obviously within every single block, every transaction has to be valid. But within the block, every miner is basically has discretion as to how those transactions get ordered. So people think that every transaction in a block has to be ordered according to gas price. But in reality, that just sort of expresses your price preference. The miner who's mining the block can order transactions in a block anywhere they want. And so you see what they call front running or back running or sandwiching, where basically different types of bots or sophisticated actors will rearrange transactions within a block in order to, for example, win a really juicy liquidation that's maybe occurring on a lending protocol. And they sort of have full discretion over the ability to do that. And normally that's occurring via third parties, so individuals around the world who run these trading bots basically that go and find these opportunities. But increasingly, miners themselves are actually going and reordering transactions within a block in order to extract value, which is where miner extractable value comes from. And so we're seeing a lot of teams address this through a couple different ways. Some teams are starting to compartmentalize it and basically turn it into its own sort of product. So Flashbots, it's a team that I've been helping with a lot of their recent product developments. They basically allow an auction to take place on the rights to reorder transactions within a block, and then some of that value goes back to the miner. And so instead of having to be a miner in order to play in this transaction ordering game, anybody can still participate, but it's more transparent, a little bit more open. I think there's also a lot of protocols now that are working on ways to basically make sure that on a protocol level, you remove a lot of the potential MEV that can occur. So just designing it such that transaction ordering and sort of this gas price war that we've sort of been happening on chain plays less of a part in sort of the user experience and the overall security of the system. So I think those are how I sort of think about investment theses in 2021.
Interesting. Thank you. How about you, Andrew?
I think Tom covered it pretty well across MEV and kind of the expansion of DeFi into more complex derivatives. But I think one thing that's really lacking is kind of the incorporation of real-world assets into DeFi and crypto in general, because right now DeFi is very self-referential, right? Cash flows are being created based on transaction volume and borrowing lending of other, crypto native assets. And so in that sense, it's kind of like a closed box. But, when we talk about real-world assets, that's, like $1 trillion space across stocks, across bonds, across FX, et cetera. And I think once those flow into crypto, like that'll kind of give more validation to this space, both from those in traditional finance, and it'll also kind of open the door for the system to be not as self-referential and also open the space up to inflows of billions, if not trillions of dollars of assets.
Cool. Ken, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I tend to be a little more reactive. Most of my background with the stuff that I did was in China in 2017, also during kind of like the ICO boom, right? So for me, I'm like, I tend to be a little more cautious as far as fundamentals go. I very much think that crypto is cycle driven, and we're at a point in the cycle where I think 95% of the token value is going to come from the narrative. I like a lot of the polka dot stuff that's coming, like the auction. The auctions are going to be. I don't even know like what's going on with the auctions and when they're happening. I know they're coming up. I know there are a lot of Chinese buyers that are going to be there, and so that's where a lot of my attention is focused. That said, after hearing a lot of what Andrew and Tom mentioned, I agree with stuff like say unsecured loans. There's something else Andrew mentioned, but I forgot. But I think in general, at this point, a lot of the primary stuff that we're doing is just dependent on whether or not the team can execute and sort of And the more, fundamentals focused stuff is just, can they survive through a bear market? A lot of the stuff that we're doing, I don't expect to see any liquidity at all this year. Anything that we throw in, I'm just prepared to ride it out for the next 3 or 4 years. If there's any particular, as far as like any specific space that I'm looking at right now, I think anything that brings more liquidity to NFTs, I think would be really helpful. That seems to be one of like the bigger issues with the space right now. I think this crop of the crop of NFTs that have come up with this recent wave, like 99% of them are going to zero. None of this is worth anything, and all the people selling them know that as well. You can introduce a way to fractionalize them or shard them, however you want to call it. That might be able to allow smaller players that might be able to allow smaller retail inflows. But again, like I think it's late cycle, and so I don't really. Not that fundamentals don't matter. I'm just not looking at them too much anymore. That's sort of my take on this.
I like how you're thinking, Ken. Yenwen, what about you? I know you're not a trader, but what maybe something exciting about what you guys are up to?
I think Andrew and Tom covered it well. And one thing I want to add is layer 2. I think most of the layer 2 protocols will launch this year. And I think that will kind of like bring a new wave for innovation and also like adoption to the system. So I think that's, we already operate on Sky, which is a sidechain, but I'm very excited on, seeing like BSC like doing pretty well. I'm really excited to see like Arbitron or like Omnicron like going well. Yeah.
You're right.
I guess on my side, like the other speakers have said, definitely unsecured lending and on-chain credit. Like Tom said, the MEV stuff is really interesting. I work with a fund, and there are a couple of TrustToken alumni, and they do that stuff very competitively. And if you look at the Etherscan transactions of the people who do these trades, it actually looks like magic, like the stuff that they're doing. These trades are so small, they're so fast, they're touching like 5 or 6 different things, and like the level of sophistication that goes into that trading is mind-blowing to me still. And then also I'm really interested in some of the things around, I guess like interest rate swaps you would call it, or just pulling yield forward on some of the interest-bearing tokens. So we're working with a protocol AP Wine, and basically like, our protocol has TF tokens that represent future yield plus the stablecoin. And you can go to AP Wine and you can basically split the underlying stablecoin from the future yield, and then you can trade and do things with the future yield. And in the case of a stablecoin that goes into perpetuity, it's one thing. But, again, like in the case of our protocol, you have individual loan tokens as well. So you could have a loan token for like an Alameda or a, Dragonfly or whoever loan. And then when that comes to expiry, you can do different things with that as well. You can rebundle those, basket those. So a bunch of really cool stuff going on there too in DeFi.
Awesome, thank you guys. I think it's so funny when I have like the headphones on. I can't really hear or see what's going on outside. But I think like here we like to keep things really casual and fun. Ryan knows that. He's been like my only like ongoing guest for the previous rounds. Yeah, thank you, buddies. But so I think we're gonna go through some questions and then like have you guys chat amongst yourselves and then open it up because there's a lot of investors and people deep into DeFi in the audience as well. And just really like sharing ideas and stuff like that. And I was really like overwhelmed and really like happily surprised that there was so much people that wanted to attend. And our space here is a little bit hard to find and getting in the building. So if anybody that knows someone who couldn't find it or is lost, I apologize like 100 times. And I hope we can do this in another location again with like, easy access, not all of these like secret handshakes and codes and stuff like that to get in. But anyways, cool. Let's continue. So very casual. It's like, what about, let's start again like with Andrew. Is there anything that you wouldn't really touch right now?
No, like we'll trade anything. Like I was gonna say, like we wouldn't touch scams, but we'll trade scams. Not that like we'll advertise them, but like XRP, if we know it's gonna go up, we'll buy that and we'll sell it higher. So
nothing's off limits. Awesome. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Same sentiment.
For Dragonfly, at least for the venture fund, we're buy and hold fund where the whole fund is 7 years. And so, we tend to, focus less on sort of these short-term things. I think A, just because we're not as good at it, and B, it's just not sort of our expertise. So, when I think about stuff that I want to buy and hold, it has to sort of be like on that time horizon. I kind of agree with Kenny. I think NFTs went through like an incredible, basically like mini 2017, like blow off top hype cycle, and things seem to be crashing now. Just looking at like, on-chain transaction volumes. And so I think, for us, when we think about investments in the NFT space, it's thinking about what is a good 7-year investment if you're long-term bullish on digital ownership and digital credit, which we are. And so for that, it looks like things more like platforms. So for example, we led the seed in Showtime, which is Alex Messages, so you can think of sort of like Instagram for NFTs. So basically allowing you to sort of curate and demonstrate.
Do you think it's more the platforms or more like the artist's work that's going to increase?
Yeah. I think maybe this is controversial. I think some NFTs will sort of last the stand of time. I think some stuff will be let's say valuable 5-7 years from now. It's like buying a Picasso, and it's like maybe it only gets more and more valuable. But a lot of stuff is probably not going to be as valuable. Probably buying that Logan Paul NFT, probably not the best idea.
Yeah. I think last week at our event we had someone talk about life-size NFT adult entertainment dolls. Is that where the conversation went? Anyway, yeah, Ken, right? Ken, what are you? Throw some hate out.
So what I learned in 2017 is you don't invest in Silicon Valley founders at this point in the cycle, because all of them think they're God's gift to crypto, and
like Stanford PhD, right?
They're gonna want to do things properly. They want to be compliant. Not to say it's not a good thing. It's just it takes time, and we don't have like a year worth of runway right now to figure all of that stuff out. The market moves when the market wants to move, and right now it's it's going full steam ahead. I think in general too, with a lot of the teams with really smart people that you see coming out now tend to be smart enough to come up with good ideas and good pitches, but they're also not the type of risk takers who will try the space out and try to build things when no one else is looking at the space. So the best time really to invest in, just like tier like A players like that is definitely during a bear market. And we're not in a bear market right now. And the ones coming out here right now are going to be super mercenary, and they're just here for the opportunity.
That's really funny. So don't trust smart people. I think there's a lot of sentiment that like degen traders have like part of the lowest IQs like amongst.
Yeah, like as the market progresses, you want to lower your IQ gradually, right? Like I'm doing my best to, get myself down to a 4th grade reading level, like
You could be dyslexic like me. That helps too.
I guess on the point of lowering my IQ, the one thing that I do avoid is algorithmic stablecoins. I don't get them. There's like too much math or something, and I just feel stupid every time I try to understand them. And like I said, I'm not a trader. If I buy something, I want to buy it for a longer period of time, and no confidence. I don't understand them. I don't know why people would ever want to use them.
But instead, other asset-backed stablecoins are where it's at.
Tether back there, right there. Look at me. There's Tether back there. Right
Okay. Yenwen, do you want to throw some hate out?
No. I think people should trade Perp token, which is our own token. But other than that, I don't know. Yeah.
Okay, cool. And maybe you have some more specific questions.
Okay, then we probably dive into the more technical ones, since Yenwen, he doesn't really cover for the investment part. So since you mentioned that the layer 2 it's actually coming out, do you probably have a view that what's the view of the current overall competition among the level 1 blockchain, and what does that mean for Ethereum level 2 coming out?
That's a good question. So personally, I believe in all the rollups. So I believe Ethereum will win in the end. So I think most of the layer 1, they are exciting ones. Like BSC, like Avalanche. I really like Avalanche, but I think Ethereum will win. So the reason is I think most of the ETH maximalists, they hold a lot of ETH tokens. And then I think they have assets, so they kind of have the skin in the game, so they want it to be successful. So I think most of them will keep investing in, layer 2, Arbitrum or Michelson, ZK Rollup, all this. So that's my personal take.
Same camp. I'm also ETH for the long term, but I guess a more general point there is just from working on TUSD, you kind of I've had the chance to talk with all the layer 1s, and I just feel like as a general point, it is underestimated how tough it is to get widespread adoption, specifically with the exchanges. like to actually get the exchanges to support each of the individual token standards of all the layer ones. For better or for worse, I think the only one that's really done it well is Tron. They've kind of got wide support there. And now that each of the big Chinese exchanges has their own competing blockchain standard, even less so, they're going to want to put in the effort to support like Algorand's token standard or Avalanche's token standard or whoever it is. No offense to any of those teams. But I just think that that's underestimated in terms of how difficult it is. Which on the flip side is, credit to Solana. I think they were very smart for what they did with Sam and all that.
Tom, do you have something to add since like your firm, like Dragonfly, invested into a dozen DeFi projects and also like CeFi before as well. So what's your view on like Ethereum layer 2 coming up?
Yeah, I think we're pretty much fully allocated into Ethereum. We've done some checks into other layer ones that are tend to be more specialized. So Celo, for example, sort of building a stable coin for emerging markets. We had a large investment into Near, which is building a sharded sort of next generation blockchain with they just launched the trustless bridge with Ethereum, which seems to be kind of the missing component for a lot of teams that are using their blockchain as sort of an Ethereum L2. We're also early investors into Matter Labs, who build ZK Sync. They're doing some really amazing work. I think the trade-off almost traditionally around L2s, as far as roll-ups go, has been you either go with sort of the optimistic approach, like with Optimism or with Arbitrum, and you get this sort of nice full Solidity EVM compatibility, but you have this sort of weird UX and this weird sort of exit game when someone actually wants to exit the chain, and people are trying to find some ways to resolve that by creating markets for exiting, but it just creates a lot more complexity for developers. Or you have sort of the ZK rollup, which has sort of nice cryptographic finality. Once the proof is on chain, it's done, but very difficult to build as a dev. It's basically a totally new language. It's sync. Most people have no experience using zero-knowledge proofs because they're kind of brand new. So it's just this whole new thing. What ZK Sync is working on or about to launch is basically full EVM compatibility or portability to ZK Sync. So you can write your code in Solidity for EVM, and it just runs on ZK Sync. And so it's sort of the holy grail when it comes to L2 scalability. But I think all this stuff is still going to be shaken out. I think there's so much around it of just, again, sort of like narrative and community. So maybe Optimism isn't the fastest, maybe they don't have the best tech, but if they have sort of the meme and the community behind it, and everybody sort of co-locates on Optimism, that can be enough to sort of win. Arguably, Ethereum is the worst smart contract platform, but everyone's here, so no one's going to leave.
And do they have something to add?
Yeah, I don't think anybody knows 100% for sure which scaling solution is going to win in the end, which L1 is going to be the dominant L1. I used to think it was Ethereum, but then BSC came out this year, and they took the world by storm. And so our strategy has been to kind of take bets across a variety of scaling solutions. So we've bet on Arbitrum, we've bet on Solana. We've taken positions in dApps across BSC and Avalanche. Really, I think the main challenge for the scaling solutions is what Ryan mentioned around adoption of token standards by these exchanges, because these exchanges are the on-ramps, right, for all the new people coming into the DeFi like layer 1 ecosystem. And so if Coinbase doesn't support your token standard, Binance doesn't support your token standard, you're pretty much like, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get any adoption at all. Binance, with kind of such a large dominant position in this space, they kind of control like where people go, right? So because of the fact that they have BSC, like I find it very unlikely that they're going to start using SLC20 or whatever Solana's standard is, and they're really going to kind of keep pushing the BAP20 standard, right? And that's kind of the reason why you saw Binance Smart Chain take off so much. And for Coinbase, right, like Coinbase being another major on-ramp, and for where a lot of money is today, they move very slowly, right? So even when Optimism comes out in during the summer, I think it's going to be at least a few months before they start allowing you to withdraw directly to Optimism.
Since you mentioned Coinbase, how do you feel that IPO is going to affect the market after tomorrow?
It's a good question. It really kind of depends on how people are positioned before, because I think the rationale is that there's a lot of people that are going to be making a lot of money off the Coinbase IPO, especially like these earlier employees. But the thing is that like they're not going to get their money right away, and we don't know how much money they're going to be taking off the table. And so it could be, tomorrow where they get the money. It could be a week from now. It could be a month from now. And it also, there's a delay in which they start allocating to crypto as well. So, I think there will be, a positive impact in terms of, new capital inflows coming into the crypto markets. But, that's probably going to be spread across, a longer time span. And so I don't think, you'll get like a pump directly because of new people allocating. You might see, some positive reaction if, say, Coinbase, is valued at $200 billion or something like that. It might give people more confidence in the space. But, we were just checking derivatives today, and, they were looking pretty overheated as well. And so, the question is how much more extended can they get? And, if we see like an unwinding today, then maybe they can continue to extend. But if they stay where they're at, then maybe not.
Oh, yeah. Since Andrew mentioned that like BSC is actually on the rise, so it could be like a potential like a threat to the Ethereum. So like, Yenwen, do you see the trend is actually coming as well, or since you're invested by Binance, so and you're supporting like Ethereum like layer 2. So anything to add here?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, BSC is doing pretty well. Personally, I think this actually like BSC and Ethereum are two group of people. I mean, we actually got lots of people coming from BSC because we actually have this bridge between BSC and Sky. But so people coming from BSC, they actually don't really use like other things like Uniswap. They don't have that experience. So I think BSC will be strong. It will be there for long. And but personally, I think Ethereum will still be the kind of like top one. So BSC will be the next. And then I'm more like bearish on the other chains, probably like other layer 1 protocols. Yeah.
Yeah, you keep nodding, so I'm just like assuming that you have something to add.
I think just a tick maybe. I think on a longer time frame, I'm a little bit more bearish on BSC. I think a lot of people in the Ethereum space kind of hold their nose at sort of BSC, and they're kind of full ETH maxis to heart. And I think I'm certainly not like that. I think like BSC is absolutely like playing an essential role. I mean, Ethereum has gotten extremely expensive to use in large part because of these gas auctions that drive gas prices up extremely high, as we've sort of seen with sort of this MEV narrative, and rightfully so. I think most people who aren't in the space don't have $20 to spend on a Uniswap trade. Like that's just egregiously high. And I think people who've been in the space long enough, maybe they sort of lost sight of that. And I think BSC is playing a pretty essential role in offering sort of a very cheap way for people to use some of these sort of DeFi primitives. But I think ultimately, like you sort of look let's say 2-3 years down the line, I think ultimately in sort of this scalability trilemma question, I don't think BSC has really done anything particularly innovative, right? They've basically taken Ethereum and sped it up, and that sort of results in like a lot of limitations. Incredible state bloat. You're still sort of capped in terms of what the actual throughput can provide. I think the thing that BSC did, which is also really innovative, and I think like I'm surprised none of the other Ethereum competitors did, was basically provide true EVM compatibility. So trying to use Tron, trying to use Solana, trying to use even Avalanche, and use a lot of these other competitors. You're downloading a new wallet. You're using some very, very complicated thing to sort of get moved over. With BSC, it's just a different RPC endpoint. You can just switch your MetaMask over, and like it just works. I think that's sort of underappreciated when people think about BSC. But I do think as Ethereum gas costs come down, as scalability improves with some of these L2s that offer basically the same UX as using something like a BSC or something like a separate blockchain. I think that there's less of a need to have something like that because there's sort of a question of what is the actual value prop.
And also congrats on like a recent like a launch of another like 225 million crypto funds. So I just want to probably represent their crowd and just want to see like for this new fund, like what will be like what are you seeing like they are still like the biggest need in the DeFi space that need to be fixed right now, and so what area would you actually still looking to fulfill the needs part for investments, and how do you identify those like promising like DeFi projects?
Yeah, I mean, I think it sort of goes back to what I was saying at the beginning, sort of around new areas of opportunity within DeFi. So some of these new areas, I think real world assets is another area that we're excited about. Actually, just today, So the first proposal went up on the Maker executive to basically add invoices via centrifuge on Maker as collateral. So it'll be real companies borrowing from MakerDAO in like the next week, which is like pretty exciting. I think the fund is also not going to be fully allocated just to doing sort of early stage seed checks. I think we'll probably also get exposure to a lot of the current DeFi assets that maybe we've held in Fund 1 that we also think are going to be great. I think the story for DeFi isn't sort of this super speculative hyper leveraged sort of ecosystem that we're in right now. It's like this stuff has to actually scale up and sort of be this world financial layer. Otherwise, it's just not super interesting as an investment. Like if the end state for something like Compound is $10 billion in assets, then this isn't a super interesting way to spend your time and probably not a super interesting way to actually invest. And so I think if you actually believe in the DeFi thesis and you sort of again think on like a 7-year time horizon, a lot of this stuff still seems pretty underpriced when you think about what is the potential and what can this thing do. It's sort of like everybody who it sold Facebook at the IPO, and now it's 30 times higher. And so it's like you have to sort of think on a longer time horizon. And for us, when we think about venture, there's still a lot of interesting, I think, underpriced opportunities in DeFi today. I think beyond that, there's still I think a lot of opportunity just around improving the UX and bringing more people on board. I think the wallet space is still kind of uncontested. There's obviously a lot of people on desktop use MetaMask. On mobile, there's a couple sort of fledgling platforms, but I still think there's like huge opportunity to make this stuff just as transparent and just as usable as using Venmo or using Line Pay or whatever the preference of your choice is.
Are you a Stanford grad?
I am actually. Yeah. Why?
You don't sound like the type of people that like Kay was like.
Wait. Yeah. Fair enough.
So some question like that, right?
Yeah. Don't invest in me.
I have full confidence behind Tom. So to add on to that, there was something a friend mentioned that I thought was pretty relevant here, and it's that actually I think in the coming years there are going to be a lot of people who will make a hell of a lot more money than the people who are already in the space. Like there's just so much more room for this to grow. And then the second thing is I actually wanted to step back with like the BSC stuff and kind of present kind of like the other side of the argument. I agree. Like long term, I'm not sure that BSC necessarily outperforms or outlives Ethereum. I think a lot of the stuff built on it is complete bullshit, and like it's very low quality, it's very opportunistic, but I think with given some time, I mean the way Chinese companies operate, right, is they iterate on innovations that already work, and they make them a lot more accessible at much lower cost to just the lowest common denominator. And we've seen many times in the past that it works. And especially given that they have kind of like their own sort of ecosystem just in China alone, no one outside of China has to give a shit about whatever they're doing on BSC. As long as there are Chinese farmers and taxi drivers and janitors and 7-Eleven workers using this stuff, like it will make money. It is mind-boggling, just the sheer number of people that there are there, and the sheer amount of both from lower income people as well as just like like 二代三代, right? Like just these the second gen and third gens that have made all their money from inflated real estate prices, or their parents or grandparents maybe were doing private equity or construction manufacturing in the past. There's a lot of retarded money out there. Like just they will buy anything that they the general DD process, okay, for a lot of these guys is just they'll ask their closest friends, have you heard of this project? It's called Sweeps, and they do like mop renting on the blockchain. Do you like it? And oh yeah, I've heard of that project. They'll go in, right? And so I don't think
crypto timeframes are generally a lot shorter, and at least with BSC, I think there's still much fruit to be harvested.
I have a question like from a different perspective. I feel like this run has made a lot of people who have been in the space for a while, new millionaires or whatnot. Do you feel like these people are going to give back and build to the community? Do you think they're going to go, buy yachts or get Lambos?
Absolutely not.
Because like, I got
Absolutely.
a message today, and it was someone, an anonymous person who was like, "Hey, Amber, we met at an ETH conference. You probably don't remember." I'm like, "Yeah, I don't remember you." He was like, "I've made it. Have you?" And I was like, "What? No." He was like, "How can I help you get there?" Like the random stuff that's happening now that I'm seeing. What are your thoughts on that?
I find it kind of worrying when like all my friends are doing angel investments, and it's like, and on the one hand, I do think it's great. Like I think the people who were building during the bear market are committed. They're not just here for money. They actually believe in the stuff and they want to see it through. I think at the same time, it's also and therefore they are reinvesting in the space. I think at the same time, there's a lot of capital floating on right now, and a lot of stuff is getting funded. And I think the valuations that we're seeing are kind of reflective of that.
So Kenny, you mentioned that like in China projects, there are a lot of like probably those like lending projects. Do you see that like some of the like China like traditional like P2P, they probably just move to like become like just like package it to become like a DeFi, like a lending projects? Or how do you like identify those like scammy projects not to invest?
Oh, so I honestly, I don't really know about the first part of the question. But the second part, how to identify scams. Generally, it's the same people running the scams. It's the general DD process is just you figure out who's, like all you're gonna see is kind of just like the team at face value. Those are all gonna be figureheads, right? You wanna talk to them, make friends with them, drink with them, get them drunk, right? You go with them, and then you ask, who is your real boss? Who is the one funding this? And once you find that out, you find that most of them tend to be the same funds. I won't name any, but it's the same ones from that have been running this stuff from 2015, 2016, 2017, 18, all the way up until now. Not to say that. I have no moral qualms necessarily with what they're doing. The game is the game, right? And if they weren't running these things, someone else would.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. What do you want to add?
I was going to add one more point on the BSC thing, since we keep talking about that one. I think the one other interesting thing there is just the distribution of Binance. Like, we have, my company has 2 tokens on Binance, and for this first token, it's natively built on Binance Chain. The second token, though, we never talked to them about it. They just turned on withdrawals for Binance Smart Chain. And they can do that with all of their Ethereum tokens. So it's just like, hey, you don't need to talk to them. They'll turn it on, and then, they'll spin up a pool on Pancake or whatever, and boom, it's liquidity. The wealth question was interesting, though. And I think, I've seen this on Twitter, as people like to show off their money and stuff. But I think for a lot of people in crypto, they're very young. And it's like,
what do you do when you're young, right? I don't know. When I was young, I wanted like a bouncy castle.
You'd go do something else. You invest in other people. It's like thinking about the Coinbase IPO. There's a lot of people that are going to get really rich that are also young, and like they're only on their first or second act of a career. So they're still.
I like how it's really random. Like they can mobilize to do a lot of really like random shit, and that's what I love about it.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to see more rainbows. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I think everyone has different interests across like science and technology and philosophy.
I think you'll be sorely disappointed. I'm sorry.
Ken knows me the best. He knows my like interest in different kinds of things.
I wish there were more people that would be kind of like diverting these funds into better causes for the world. But I think the reality is that we have had a very peaceful and prosperous 60 years. When was World War II? Like just whenever that was.
The 40s. I love it.
The 40s.
Let's like conquer. Like I used to do a lot of foundations, like Save the Lake, World Peace. So I can help you guys with that if you want to like put towards these efforts. I got you, Ken.
Love to eventually once I figure out how to restructure things. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think we're kind of like a phase in like a bigger macro phase where just people have had a really good time for far too long. Like there's just not that many really altruistic people, I think. Again, I tend more towards cynicism because of my past experiences, but I hope that it doesn't color anyone else's intentions moving forward. And I hope you all do great things in the world.
I do believe in the community, and I do believe that there's a lot of genuinity and like good heart. And I do feel that at the end of the day, like those people that are orchestrating these big kind of scams are not going to be like the winners at the end. Like that's my like true believer mentality right there. And I also want to say that like during these like different topics events, like we have next week's topics about real estate and biotech in the room because there's so much like cross interest. So I think there's a lot of room for people who invest in DeFi to, you know, talk about sustainability or talk about like how to live forever, longevity. I think there's so much room to grow from these things. But I also think that, yeah, I have a lot of thoughts. But anyway, I think you guys kind of know each other, kind of don't know each other. I just want to like let you guys like, you know, work it out. You have any questions for each other? Let's start with Tom because he's looking at each and every.
I think, yeah, right. I got called out here. I think I've met everyone other than Ryan. I guess we just met, but yeah, I don't.
What have you always wanted to ask Andrew?
I feel like I chat with Andrew pretty frequently, so I don't know if I have anything particularly burning. Do you have anything you want to ask me?
It could be like non-DeFi related if you're like, you know, like.
What are you doing this weekend?
Nothing. Yeah.
You guys have any like, you know, inner discussion points?
Dragonfly?
Oh, our second fund is closed. But yeah.
Andrew, when are you going to start taking LPs?
These are good questions.
I'm just kidding. I ask him that all the time. He's not taking any LPs.
Speak to the mic. You guys have anything you want to add? You're new here, Ryan.
Yeah, sure, I'll ask a question. Tom, you brought up the points about MEV earlier, and I was just talking to Ray the other day, and we were in a group, and there was some speculation that the reason that gas prices were lower was that Flashbots was actually working. Any speculation to whether that was the case, or it was just people were more on Binance Smart Chain that day?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's very early to tell because it's basically started dropping over the weekend. But Flashbots has done a really great job selling to miners and sort of rolling up hash rate. So it is quite possible. I think it's kind of too early to tell. I think, but optimistically, if you can sort of isolate and remove that priority gas auction and separate it elsewhere, then you can sort of lower gas fees for everybody and sort of isolate that particular thing. I think also like with the IP 1559, like that just sort of adds so much tailwinds to sort of the MEV narrative because a lot of the miner revenue is going away and so they need to get it somewhere else. And so it's like, let's stabilize gas fees and sort of take MEV into like a separate arena.
A question for Yenwen. What markets are you guys excited about adding to Perp? And when are you guys going to add coin?
Okay, so right now we launched most of the DeFi tokens, and I think personally, I think like Andrew said, the U.S. stock market, I think that will be really interesting. I mean, but there is always regulation risk on that. That would be one. The other thing that might be interesting is probably like I think it would be the stock. Yeah, U.S. stock. Yeah, once we can have U.S. stock, I think we can launch everything. Yeah.
I maybe have a question for other people, including Yenwen. We're all in Taiwan. What can Taiwan do to sort of cement itself as a crypto hub in Asia?
Something to do with capital gains and taxes, definitely. I mean, this place is perfect, but the tax code is just not super friendly compared to other, even like a Hong Kong or a Singapore or obviously the super tax friendly places. So, I mean, if they just did something there, I mean, why would we ever leave? This is pretty great.
Yeah, what else do you think like Taiwan needs?
I think this probably applies to like the broader kind of startup space. I think maybe I don't know exactly what kind of mechanics you can put in place, but just something to encourage more risk taking from some of the endemic funds here. I think the problem that a lot of startups express is that there's just not a lot of risk affinitive money here. Like people just don't invest in tiny startups, and I think part of that maybe is because the market's too small, or I don't know. It could be that like the startup culture here isn't aggressive enough, but anything to help build that up, I think would be very helpful. I think a lot of very good founders here have a very tough time just because it's difficult to find. It's difficult to raise money in Taiwan.
I think it's really hard. Personally, I think in Taiwan, hardware industry is really huge. Most of the colleagues, they went to like hardware company, IC design companies. I mean, the whole class just there. So only a small percentage of people working on software. And I think, and of that, only a small, tiny percent of people will work on crypto. So we don't really have lots of people working on crypto. I think that's just like structural issue. I don't think hardware industry will go away. I mean, it actually keep going strong. So that's what we are, what we have now. Personally, I think having like meetup like this or like education, I'm kind of like expose people more to the crypto probably help.
I can do that.
Yeah, but I don't. I just don't really. I mean, I'm not very positive about this. I think it's just too slow. And to Ken's point, I don't really think the funding is a problem. I mean, you can always raise funds from outside Taiwan. I mean, if you have a good idea, but the problem is not enough people doing this, not enough good teams, and then you don't even have a chance to kind of like go aboard and raise. Yep.
Since Kenny say that like, there are not much like money here, like why don't you like the VC move here then? Yeah.
I think that's what the trend is, right? Okay, so let's start with like the second part of this event. This is where I like look at the audience and call out people by name. I think there's a lot of different levels of people interested in DeFi here. We have like, investors like Ray, and we have like Chris and Seaman and Chris. Is there any like questions you guys want to ask, or anybody, please?
I think a lot of it is going to be dependent on some of the more pervasive social media platforms. Specifically, the case that I'm talking about is Clayton with Kakao Talk. I think they've done a really good job, I think, of kind of smoothing the onboarding process. ClaySwap, their decentralized DEX is available on the Kakao Talk app. Like you can access Clayton token very easily. I think like with many other things in crypto, the solution is going to be something that not very many people can think of or are focused on. But I guess like I would say that one of the more interesting routes that has been taken is specifically in the case of just like the Clayton ecosystem and what they have with Kakao. I guess maybe the best analogy for the American market might be Facebook and Instagram, but because the American market is a lot more, touchy with that kind of stuff, it might take a while longer. But I mean, like the regulatory barrier is very large, so I'm not sure that's something that anyone can really innovate through. Like you just need to have the right team working on it that has the right connections with the bureaucracy.
I think in the U.S., you see PayPal. I mean, I don't know how many Americans have a PayPal account, but it's a good amount. So that's kind of a start. You saw Revolut the other day just added 11 tokens, and it was like, Uniswap and Filecoin. So not even just the big tokens. So I think, there's things like that. And then ultimately, I feel like USDC will probably do something here. I mean, I don't know what exactly, but I could see them integrating with more and more fintech apps or something along those lines, perhaps. Dharma has a pretty good solution. It's just not a widely used app. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's a common question for sure. I have no idea what the TWD ramps are like.
So my opinion is that I don't think a lot of the mainstream people will use DeFi, and I don't think they need to. I think the yield will, get to them in other ways, and they already are, right? So if you look at some of the really famous lending solutions out there, like BlockFi and Celsius, they have millions of customers and they're doing billions of dollars in business in a centralized fashion. And I think a lot of people don't understand where that yield comes from. That yield comes from, them doing their own trading and lending in DeFi themselves. And there's one lending company actually that is like very aggressive in yield farming, and they take a lot of risks. And it's kind of like an open secret in the industry. I'm not going to name their name, but there's other more conservative ones, and maybe they don't do their own yield farming, but they will lend out to funds that will do yield farming themselves. And so it's happening, but it's happening indirectly, and I think that's how it's going to continue to happen. Similar to like how yield and interest rates work in the current traditional financial system.
I want to also ask, because I think people living in Taiwan are interested. Like Andrew, you said you're kind of here because you like it here. Are you planning on like having a company and office here? All of you other guys, is Taiwan going to be home? Is this a COVID escape? What's your connection here?
So I work with one analyst here, Eva.
Hi, Eva.
And I'm planning on going to Puerto Rico actually next week. I'm a U.S. citizen, so Puerto Rico is the only place where I can get those tax benefits. there's a lot of really talented people that came here from Puerto Rico as well, and they're all unfortunately going back because of tax reasons. So if something could be worked out there, that would be awesome. But I plan to split my time between Taiwan and Puerto Rico in the future.
That's a really interesting combination. I've never heard that before. Just to say, like, Puerto Rico and Taiwan, your affinity for like good weather and islands. Anyway.
There are dozens maybe half a dozen of us.
Yeah, I mean, with me, I think it was sort of multiple factors. I think one, just with Dragonfly and a large part of the team being in Asia, a lot of our LPs in Asia, a lot of portfolio companies in Asia, it sort of made the calculation make a lot more sense because I'm already, spending a lot of time on calls with sort of this time zone. And then, just broadly speaking, I'd spent, 10 years in San Francisco. I was a product manager at Instagram before I was at 0x, and obviously when I was in school. And so just looking for something new. And I think, sort of speaking to the global nature of crypto, I sort of, was reflecting on my year in November, and I was like, I'm just not really doing deals in the Bay Area. I don't think I did like a single Bay Area based deal in 2020. And so, ostensibly the reason why you live in SF is to get access to that talent and that deal flow and that network. But if it's not there, then what's really keeping you there? And I think Taiwan, presents a lot of great, opportunities, especially again with sort of Dragonfly's Asia focus.
Do you have a gold card? And do you see a lot of Taiwan like DeFi startups? Because I don't really know that many of them. Maybe.
Yeah, I do have a gold card. There aren't that many Taiwan DeFi startups. I think, broadly speaking, it's just a great place to live in Asia and sort of get exposure to a lot of the great teams that are building in Asia. I'd love to see more, Taiwanese DeFi companies that we can
Are you
invest
looking at for Taiwanese DeFi company? Maybe they can.
Yeah. If you are in Taiwan and you're working on something cool in crypto, definitely message me or email me. But yeah, we do investments everywhere across Europe, US, Asia. And I think from that perspective, anyone who's working on something cool, like we're happy to invest. And I think that sort of speaks to like this sort of global nature of capital that people have been.
You're from Taiwan. You have like 3 exit companies here, but please do tell us. Please. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm from Taiwan.
开玩笑，行讲，没有，你是不是要待在这边久久，还是你也想要 like 搬到 like you want to move? You see yourself moving?
No.
Oh, you're okay. You're just happy on the mic.
Yeah, I love Asia. I lived in Hong Kong previously, and I spent for work 6 months traveling through Asia and China and Korea, but I'd actually never been to Taiwan. And then I'm sure many of you guys know the guys from Origin. I saw Josh updated his bio to say he moved to Taiwan, and I just messaged him and said, hey, how'd you do that?
Is he the reason what brought you here? Really?
Yeah, I didn't know the gold card existed.
I've known this guy in like 3 different countries, by the way. Yeah. Anyway.
And yeah, I got the gold card. I moved out here, and I was planning to stay for like 2 weeks, and then I was going to go to Singapore because I couldn't go from America to Singapore, but I could go from America to Taiwan to Singapore.
You can go to Singapore now without quarantine, just so you know.
I know. That's why I came here. And then I was here for 2 weeks, and I was like, this place fucking rocks. I mean,
I was supposed to go to Hong Kong, and I never went.
Yeah, it's
back
like
to Hong Kong.
I've been to Singapore. I know it's kind of boring compared to Taiwan. So now I'm here, and I love it. Don't really want to leave. Most of our team at this point has actually left the Bay Area too. I think most of our team lives in Europe at this point. We still have a couple people in California. I like it here a lot.
Yenwen, I just wanted to say that you're like, a staple of, successful entrepreneur and startups in Taiwan. So do you feel like there's enough, you can be based here and your companies can grow here? Or what are your advice to Taiwanese startups?
Oh, that's a good question. So definitely can base here. We are based here. We have around 19 people right now. Mostly are in Taiwan. I think we take a very different approach. I've been having my own startup for almost 20 years, so very long time. I've been through different cycles, and I think for the past 5 years, actually I went to Bay Area a lot, just try to build a connection because if you want to get outside funding, you have to have that connection, and then most of investors are in Bay Area, so I actually spend 1/3 of the time there. But actually, start from last year, you don't have to do that. Our investor, I haven't met most of my own investor physically. That's actually how it works right now. So I mean, for Taiwanese startup, I think definitely good for funding outside of Taiwan, and I think it's definitely you can find like talent here and then work on your team. Yes, that's true. So we just like pay more, I think. I mean, that's definitely one way, but I mean, it's just like, I mean, we spend, I think, a lot of time, I mean, like reviewing like people and then try to recruit people. Yeah, it's just.
I also want to say that there's also YouTube. Like I Googled all of you guys, and the most videos of like English and like YouTube videos was you, Yenwen. So YouTube's, yeah. Well, what about Kate? How can you talk about home here, basis home in Shanghai? I know you have some insight into China and Shanghai.
I mean, I like Taiwan a lot better, like in general. I'm also heading to Puerto Rico as well.
Next week? Are you leaving?
No, like mid May.
I want to go to Puerto Rico. There's some people in Barbados also. Barbados.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of really good American talent going to Puerto Rico. I guess the people just really like the beaches there. Yeah, I mean, as far as Taiwan goes, right? Like it's a very progressive culture. Like, there's a lot of good tech talent. People here are very open to just like innovation in general. It's a very fun place.
It is very fun. We've all had quite some fun here. I think that's enough for the love of Taiwan. So let's go back to questions. Stan, DeFi questions.
First, you guys talk about Puerto Rico. What's the tax benefit of Puerto Rico?
We have a lawyer in the house. Andrew, the lawyer. Can you answer that?
Second question is, Bitcoin's been, 63K right now. I heard, off top, I've heard late cycle. Where are we in the cycle?
No investment advice.
Where's everyone's thought in terms of where Bitcoin can go? And what's your justification for that valuation? Puerto Rico first.
Who wants to go first? Puerto Rico. The tax benefit. I don't know. I just really like
beaches. You like the beaches. You're there for the beaches.
It's just under tax, so I was just wondering.
Well, I've always wanted to learn how to surf, so that's why I'm going. No, I mean, for any Americans here, I guess, like they've kind of like folded Act 20, Act 22 into Act 60. Just like, if you're there, any income that you make is 4%, capital gains is 0. You guys aren't posting the broad, like.
Citizen. Sorry? If you're a U.S. citizen, you're going to be taxed everywhere.
Except Puerto Rico.
Except Puerto Rico.
That's the only place, yeah.
And the reason for that is because we're going to be reinvesting into the ecosystem there.
Okay, let's have a non-tax question. Peter, Simon, Chris, anybody? Oh, yeah. Sorry? Bitcoin price.
Price and valuation, justification.
Thank you.
I'm Horizon. It's uncapped.
300K.
Next week, who knows?
300K, end of year.
Is it overvalued now?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody knows.
I think there's a really low probability that we top out at 63K. If you listen to like an interview from NYDIG last month, they mentioned that they had a lineup of something like $25 billion worth of inflows from institutional investors waiting to get in. They have a very kind of like long queue, and there's just a lot of institutional money as opposed to retail money from last cycle. Try to get into Bitcoin, and they move very slowly, right? So, I don't think we're done yet for the cycle.
Awesome. Okay, last final DeFi questions. Come on, Andrew. Come on, Dan. You. I don't know you. Sorry. I really don't. Sorry.
You mean my name?
Yeah, who are you?
My name is William.
Hi, William.
I'm from the Ross. And I have a question about Andrew. Yeah, because I'm a big fan of Andrew, and And yesterday I just found a very impressive post that from Andrew. Is that Andrew said that empathy is a lifelong of investment and trading. I feel very impressive, and I'm also curious about recently. Have you seen any phenomena that some people don't show their empathy or don't have empathy and lose money, or you found some phenomena about that, so you want to write a post? And if any other people have some opinion, I also very interested in hearing your opinion. Yeah.
I always get names wrong. I thought he said Andrew Yang, and I was like, wow, Andrew Kang is like just as up there as like Andrew Yang, next mayor of New York. But yeah, please answer.
Could you restate the question? I think it was a question in response to a tweet I made about empathy being the lifeblood of trading and investing. And, you know, kind of like the rationale behind that is that, you know, from the investing perspective, right, like you want to invest in things that are going to have product market fit. And for you to be able to understand that, you kind of need to understand the market participants, what their needs are, what they're going to be able to use, right? And so, you know, if you can get that right, then you can have a very high hit rate in investing. If you don't get that right, then probably not. And then from a trading perspective, right, like, you know, where price goes is not based on any sort of like fundamental value or intrinsic value. At the end of the day, that, you know, that's a meme. It doesn't exist. You know, where price goes is just where people are buying and selling a specific asset. And so if you can understand where they're buying and selling and why they're buying and selling, you know, how they're going to be trading in the future, then, you know, then you're going to kind of understand where price is going to go.
Cool. If there's no more questions from the audience, let's just have like everyone go through like, you know, last remarks or like whatever they want to say, and then we'll get back to drinking whiskey and Indian samosas. So let's start with Ryan.
Enjoy the whiskey, samosas, and you know, I'm pretty widely accessible. I'm just at Ryan Rodenbaugh on every social media app known to man: Telegram, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out.
Event at Core on Friday night. I think a lot of us here, we could have had this event at Core Friday night. I don't know.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Maybe we'll do our next event just at Core, right?
If you have any like DeFi like ideas, I'm happy to discuss or like give comments on that. If you want to raise, you should go to Tom and Andrew. I think those are the top.
Andrew's
top
like,
investors.
please don't contact me.
I guess like something I'd like to talk about is just if you're getting into crypto now, I guess like be very careful with how you manage risk. Don't over leverage. I think again, like we're very like mid to late cycle. We could keep going up, but in the event that we don't, you want to make sure that you don't get taken out of the game. That has been the single most important factor in who is successful in crypto, is just that you survive.
I think that's a good strategy to survive for like the next 3 or 4 years. But I think when people ask others like, oh, you know, a lot of people have been in DeFi a long time, like, should I invest in DeFi? The answer is usually no. Like, don't invest in DeFi. And if you do, you know, invest in something like Bitcoin. So what advice do you give people? I'm sure even everyone from like your neighbor to like your dog sitter has been asking you on advice. So what do you usually tell people?
I don't have any financial advice. But just, again, don't invest anything that you cannot afford to lose. All right. Okay. And if you do, do enough research that you have like an idea of why you want to go in. Otherwise, it's pure gambling, and you know, luck isn't really a strategy. Yeah. I don't have any social media.
You're the anonymous, okay? You're Kay the anonymous. You're not here. No one knows who you are. That's it.
Let's see. Closing remarks.
Or like risk management kind of thing.
I don't know if I have any risk management
or
comments.
what you tell your babysitter.
Babysitter?
No?
What?
I don't know.
I don't have any children. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are thinking about what to do in crypto. You know, should I work in crypto? Should I build something in crypto? Should I invest in crypto? And, you know, I also don't know what the market's going to do next week or this week with the Coinbase IPO, or what's going to do a month from now. But I think you just kind of have to zoom out and you know, sort of see what's been happening over the past 10 years. And like, it only ratchets up. It never ratchets down. And I think if you have that kind of time horizon and you have that kind of perspective, there's amazing opportunities in crypto. But you kind of have to go in with that mindset that this is like a long-term play. And most people who lose money, you lose money from selling, not from holding.
I understand that. I also think that, you know, I want to ask you also, because people come up to me like, oh, we're really interested in NTFs. What's that? That's really cool. So I think, like, you know, people really need to do their research and do their homework. And, you know, what can you add to that? Or Andrew, please.
Yeah, I guess right now there's a lot of excitement and interest in this space because, you know, the markets are going up and, you know, everyone's making money, but and that's not going to last forever. And, you know, these cycles are, you know, usually very similar in the sense that, you know, interest kind of goes away when prices stop going up. And so I hope everyone, maintains their belief and conviction in the space, and that they continue to kind of work and build during the bear market, and, everything will pay off as long as you kind of keep that conviction. It has for those of us that have.
Okay, let's get back to drinking, and thank you everyone for coming here. Thank you so much for being here, guys, and yeah.